You've tuned into Better in Business with Jeannie. As an award-winning strategic bookkeeper and business veteran, I am dedicated to helping entrepreneurs learn, grow, and prosper. This podcast aims to challenge your thinking. If you're not thinking the right way, how can you act the right way? Each episode will dive into key drivers of success, which I also call the rules of the game. Learn the rules, play to win. Let's go. Hello and welcome. In today's episode, I am going to help you drive your profit results by teaching you all about the critical drivers of profit. I know this numbers stuff can feel boring, but it is unavoidable. It is sink or swim. Successful, profitable organizations have this nailed, and I promise that today I'm going to set you on a path to nailing your critical drivers of profit as well. For more information on this episode or how to work with me, check out the show notes or visit betterinbusiness.global. I like to start every episode by reminding you that it is globally recognized that pillar one for the success of any business is up-to-date, accurate bookkeeping. If your books are not right up to date, tune into episode 1, please. You can also get in touch with me if you'd like some help. Your host today is little old me, your strategic bookkeeper. Let's dive in. I see way too many businesses with high revenues and zero profits. And today I want to talk to you about why that happens and how you can avoid it. You can avoid it by working out what your critical drivers of profit are. So this is especially important if you've got a team of one or more, because once you go from being a solopreneur to having a team, the risk of making sales but not making profit increases substantially. The thing to understand about that is that revenue doesn't necessarily mean more profit. Gross profit is revenue less cost of sales. And so if you get the cost of sales equation wrong, no profit is going to drop out into gross profit. Net profit is gross profit minus all your operating costs. So if you're spending too much on the day-to-day running of your business, then again, no profit at the end. I guess the takeaway here is that just making sales revenue does not equal profit. I wish that the math equation was that easy, but it simply is not. So now let's look at what is a critical driver. So I'm sure you know what a target is, right? So think of a revenue target. So let's say next month you want to generate $40,000 in sales. Now, that is your target. Your critical drivers of that target are the things that you do every day that actually drive you to the end of the month target. So a simple example of a critical driver around sales, let's say you've got somebody with the sales hat on or a salesperson, they might have 5 activities that they're doing every day that generate sales. So it might be I'm making 5 calls, I'm following up on all my leads, I'm following up on all my quotes, whatever those daily tasks are, those daily activities. If they do those every day, then you're far more likely to hit your target, right? If they don't do those every day, then you are far less likely to hit your target. So this is just a basic example of what a critical driver is. They've also been called norms. The other way to think about it is that a target or a KPI, they have lots and lots of names, is a lot like looking in the rear vision mirror. So if you get to the end of the month and you haven't achieved that target, you can only look back. A critical driver is your ability to look forward. So that's a great way to look at it. An example of the power of critical drivers, my father says that he built his $100 million business on a set of critical drivers for his sales team. So when any of his team were not getting the desired results, they weren't hitting their targets, he would sit down with them with their 2 pages of critical drivers, go through each and every one, and then find out which one were they dropping the ball on. And then he would just get them to focus on that critical driver and they would achieve their targets. He built his entire $100 million organization on those critical drivers. So I want to impress upon you that while targets are essential, right, that you must have targets, critical drivers are just as important. In fact, I would argue that they're almost a bit more important in order to help you get the results that you want. So now let's go into the critical drivers of profit, yeah? Because these are generally trickier than the critical drivers of revenue. So let's look at those now. Let's treat this a bit like an exercise for your business. So first off, I want you to answer these questions for yourself. So what business are you in? Think about your industry, that kind of thing. Are you a tradie? Are you a professional service? I want you to think about that. And the other question that I want you to answer for yourself is, what pricing systems do you currently use? So do you use a mix of pricing systems that include either of these? So do and charge work. So that might be that you basically have an agreement with your customers or clients that you're going to do the work and charge them a specific rate, and the rate can be hourly or it can be on measurements and things like that. So I call that do and charge work. The other pricing system is fixed price quoted work. So that's where you agree with a customer or a client on a fixed price for a job where it has a limited scope. So for this scope of work, I'm going to charge you X amount. So that's let's call that fixed price system. There are more pricing models. So ideally, if you need to pause the podcast and just answer that question for yourself. What pricing system or systems am I currently using? So now that you know what business you're in, what industry you're in, and what pricing systems that you're using, we're going to look at the critical drivers of profit for each one of those two pricing systems. So let's start with do and charge work. Okay, this one is usually a bit easier than fixed price job critical drivers, but it's not foolproof. So just do and charge is not foolproof, especially when you have a team. Okay, so there are risks and they should be mitigated with critical drivers. Two main critical drivers that relate to do and charge work. So the first one is staff timesheets driving billing. And I was chatting to a client about this one recently. He has an excellent business, and the approach we take with him strategically is that the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. So we're not waiting for him to have profit problems. We are making sure that we nail best practices around his finances and everything else in order to avoid problems happening, which is the best case scenario. So staff timesheets driving billing is about when you were doing do and charge work. So basically when your team clock their time each day, time and tasks, is that automatically flowing through to the way you bill your clients? Because if you're in do and charge, even if it's by the meter or by some kind of measurement, then the time and tasks that your staff are clocking for themselves to get paid, so usually that's flowing through to payroll, should also be connected and integrated and automated into billing out the work to your client. The reason that you need to make this a critical driver, make sure that the staff are clocking time and tasks every day in the right way so that you can avoid admin errors. That's why you also want to automate it. So let's say you've got your you don't have that system in place. Let's say that you're using a manual system and that there's no connection between your team clocking their time and tasks and your billing out of those jobs. Let's say there's no connection. So the risk there is the admin error. So if you are double handling and billing out and it's not connected, you can easily make errors, lots of things can go wrong, and then jobs can not get billed, jobs can get billed incorrectly, and then the profit is adversely affected, which is why staff timesheets driving billing is one of the critical drivers for do and charge work. So the next critical driver is around non-billable time. So your team is clocking time and tasks, yeah, can all of it be billed to clients? Is the team able to clock time and tasks, which is like unbillable time? So think meetings, think breaks, but think other wasted time, okay? Because anything that you're not billing to a client that's non-billable time is admin time, it's operations You need to be totally in control with this do and charge model of non-billable time. An example of a critical driver around this, like a daily thing you do, is a report generated daily which details unbillable time. A process to performance manage any staff member that is clocking unbillable time that doesn't meet policy and procedure guidelines. And the two are kind of connected, right? If you've got really great systems around your timesheets, around your team clocking time and tasks, then you're probably going to have better data and better around unbillable time or non-billable time, which means that you're going to be able to see it. But it's really easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, right? Go out, do the job, generate the revenue. Everything should go smoothly. That is not the way to a really profitable business. You need just some key, nice, simple, critical drivers. And in this case, it's those two. Are timesheets driving billing? And are we making sure that we monitor non-billable time and we take action daily? Okay, we don't want to wait till the end of the month and go, hey, Tom, why is this all this non-billable time? Well, I don't know. I didn't have anything to do. Suddenly you've got all these expenses for Tom. You couldn't bill to clients and the profit's all gone. Okay, now let's look at the critical drivers of profit around those fixed price jobs. And before we move on to that, I'd like you to think for a moment what kind of fixed price jobs you do. So are the fixed price jobs you do fairly simple in their scope, therefore they are easy to work out, and the risk of the job not being profitable, is the risk more limited? Or do you do more complex fixed price jobs where the scope is more broad, therefore doing the quote is more difficult, therefore the risk of you forecasting the job profitability is there's a higher risk of you making mistakes, and therefore the job profits coming out zero or less than you expected. So even if you need to pause the podcast, it's really important that you take a moment to just consider, think, rather than just do all the time. Really stop and consider the kind of jobs that you're fixed price quoting. There are a lot of moving parts when it comes to the critical drivers of profit for fixed price jobs. So to help you understand what some of the critical drivers for you might be, because they are going to vary business to business, I'm going to give you two examples of businesses that I've worked with or work with, and the critical drivers that they have developed to use to make sure that their businesses are profitable. So let's call the first business Tom's Carpentry. I'm changing the name to protect privacy. So Tom's Carpentry serves the building industry. They tender for work, and the scope of the jobs is broad enough that there's a fair bit of risk that when they scope and forecast and quote, that the actual result of the job might be less profitable than they anticipated. So they've got bigger jobs to quote. Tom's Carpentry is turning over $4 million a year. So when Tom first came to me, his profit was zero. Okay, turnover was $4 million a year, but there was no profit coming out the bottom. Okay, so the first thing we focused on was pillar one. We got the numbers up to date and accurate. Yeah, because there was some issues there. After that, it took a few months, but within a few months, we had collaborated with Tom to move him from zero profit to about $80,000 a month. And I know that's a massive result. Absolutely, we were chuffed. But let's look at how we did that. So we did narrowly focus around these critical drivers of profit. So it was all about getting the business profitable. So the first thing that they did is they recognised, not in this order, but when we got to the $80,000 result, how they did it. So it's really important that we look at the secret sauce that you've developed that got you to the result so that we can repeat this. So these are the things they did. They recognised what the best pricing system for them was. And for Tom's Carpentry, they realised do and charge work was great for them. They did some do and charge work in measurement, not always by the hour. It was by measurement, and that worked brilliantly, and it resulted in really profitable jobs. They tweaked that pricing system to work for them. So the next thing they did is they really faced up to what types of jobs were all revenue and no profit, or worse, they were actually losing money on them. So then what happened was they had some jobs profitable, some jobs not, and the mix of the two meant zero profit. So when I talk about they faced up, they always had a gut feel. They knew early on. But when they were able to use their up-to-date accurate numbers and actually sit down and be data-driven, they had the proof. So they faced up to the types of jobs that weren't profitable, and they simply stopped doing that kind of work. And sometimes it's about not doing more work. So they thought that the answer to their profit problems was probably more revenue. Absolutely not. It was to do less. It was to stop doing work. Okay. So next thing that they did is they absolutely made a commitment to job costing. So this was all about being data driven. Okay, so they committed to looking at the profit on every job. So they had the forecast, the quote, then they looked at the actual, and they didn't hide from it. They leaned into job costing. They also did what I give a label of product innovation. So even if you're in the services game, you have the opportunity to product innovate, and that is to look at what you're delivering to your clients, to your customers, and to innovate the way that you're doing it to serve them better and to also serve your business better, okay, to make sure that you've got the oxygen, the profit and the cash there. So they product innovated. In this case, it was around insurance jobs. They offered to quote on more of what was involved in the job, like rubbish removal. So it wasn't necessarily carpentry, but it was all these things that they could do, and they had a much higher profit margin, and they made a lot more profit on the job. So what I've just outlined was really their secret sauce recipe for how to create profitable jobs and a profitable business. In terms of critical drivers, they really developed a way to monitor their work in progress to get alerts that jobs were not stacking up profit-wise, okay? So it's not easy work, but it's essential work. So they developed their own way of monitoring that, which then, as with my strategic bookkeeper hat, I was able to challenge them, make sure that it was all stacking up as well. But yeah, the critical driver was let's look at the jobs daily and make sure that we can see that they are going to stack up in the end. Yeah, so drive the profit result. Let's move on to business 2 as an example. So let's call this one Sam's Commercial Cleaning. So Sam's turnover is about $3 million a year. This is a real life example, but I've changed a couple of details for privacy. So $3 million turnover a year, and Sam is doing great. This is the one where we talk about repair the roof while the sun is shining. Sam's jobs can span a day, they can span 2 to 3 days, but they can also span a week or so. So like Tom's Carpentry, they came up with a way to monitor the profitability on jobs in progress. Yeah, you might call it work in progress. Specifically, they personally looked at day 2 of each of their more significant jobs, and they compared actual productivity to forecast productivity. This included receiving daily photos from the operations team. So again, it was about looking at these jobs in progress and making sure that they could address any problems daily, not reflect at the end and say, oh no, we got it all wrong. Okay, so these are the daily critical drivers. Both these examples are of businesses with fairly high turnovers. If your business is less complex, the great news is that your critical drivers are going to be easier to develop. A key takeaway from all of this is job costing, job costing, job costing. If you are in the time for money game in any way, shape or form, so if you're white collar, like a professional services type business, if you're blue collar, if you are, in any way, shape or form, you need to lean into job costing. Okay. So, definitely that is a key takeaway. Now I know this numbers stuff can feel heavy duty, but profit and cash are like oxygen for a business. They are the first thing that you must pull out of your business, yeah? So once we've got the profit and cash sorted and we can prove that we can make those consistent, then you get the privilege of pulling things like time out of your business. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. You cannot afford to bury your head in the sand here. If you feel like you need some help in this area, we would love to help you, okay? So you can reach out. Having a discussion costs nothing, but inaction could cost you everything. Thanks for tuning in. For more information on this episode or how to work with me, check out the show notes. If you'd like to know how I can help you do better in business, you know where to find me, betterinbusiness.global. See you in the next episode.